Welcome to today's final session, Tales of Transformation. Today's session, at the very, very start, we heard from John and we heard from Faraz about how becoming an agent of transformation brings a huge amount of opportunity to organizations, but at the same time brings challenges. Today is one of those rare insights that we get to hear from 3 key customers of ours about how they've actually driven that change within their organizations. And it's going to be an interactive session. So we're going to start by talking about taking an outside approach in, starting with a customer-centric approach, both to the business and the IT strategy. Then, how to really inspire your teams, how to get them motivated against that common goal. The third topic that we really want to talk about then is how to break the status quo, making sure that in organizations where you have a lot of legacy technology and processes, how can you actually inspire people and drive forward that change? And then driving innovation without fear. Innovation and fear are intrinsically linked. How do you support your teams to take those challenges and those risks while supporting the business? All of this is underpinned by real-time intelligence. How to be data-driven and use those insights to help you further your transformation quicker and de-risk it. So we're going to welcome to the stage our panel. Guys, grab a seat.
You're in the middle.
So, gents, we're going to ask you to introduce yourselves. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what your role is, and how long you've been a customer of AppDynamics? So, Steve, we'll start with you.
Sure. So, Dave Rockcliffe. I work for BP. I'm head of IT for the oil trading platforms we have. So that's mainly for deal capture around physical deals, which is when we sell you some oil, or derivatives deals when we kind of hedge against it. We've been using NatD for about 18 months, something like that. Yeah, and you know, we trialed it out for about a year, and then it's starting to spread across BP. And yeah, we're pretty happy with it.
Cool.
Cool. I'm Benny. I'm the head of site reliability engineering at Just Eat. I'm also a father of 2, and they didn't sleep well last night, so flagging now it's the end of the day. We've been using AppDynamics just over a year now, very much on the operational side, and we're sort of in discussions now about moving up the maturity model and getting it embedded across our dev teams. Perfect.
Stefan?
Hi, I'm Stefan from Lloyds Banking Group. It says I'm a product owner on the PSD2 program. That's from LinkedIn. It's moved on a little bit. I'm head of operations for Open Banking and PSD2 API platform. We've been an AppDynamics customer for, I think, just over 3 years now, predominantly with EUM and latterly with APM. It's on our key commercial banking platforms. EUM is across our internet banking platform, and open banking with APM as well.
Perfect. Thank you guys for joining us. Really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. We're going to start with taking an outside approach in, having that customer-centric view. One of the things that we've noticed in having a lot of focus groups over the last 6 months is technologists continually talking about the pace of innovation in technology outpacing the ability of organizations to actually leverage and fully adopt that technology. So the change is moving faster than companies' ability to use it. So I suppose, Benny, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd agree with that. Technology as a whole is the technology from every company out in the globe. If you're trying to keep up with every company that's producing everything, you of course you're going to fail. But also you can't stagnate. You can't sit there and not innovate. You can't sit there and not keep up. But you don't have to keep pace with what's latest in the market. Examples from inside Just Eat. So yeah, when we moved to the cloud, it was 4 years ago now, we chose AWS as our cloud provider. Nowadays, you'd use an agnostic approach, and you'd try to find some solution that gave you a multi-cloud approach. Does that mean we should now invest time in making ourselves multi-cloud? We've got so much of the benefits of being in one. Is it worth the investment? Or wait 4 years and there'll probably be something completely different coming along.
So it sounds like for me, you're starting with it being really clear about what the goal is and finding the technology to fit that, not needing to keep up with whatever's new.
Yeah, well, you need to keep up, but yeah, you don't always have to chase the latest. You know, I mean, we're a .NET Windows sort of house, and as soon as .NET Core came out, you know, I had developers chomping at the bit to release code in .NET Core. It's like, keep away from our production system. You know, you can go and do that in some side systems that, you know, it's okay that they're going to completely rewrite it in 6 months, and you're going to have to completely rewrite your end of it. You know, so if you want to keep up, it's important to do that, but you don't have to do it on your main stack. You don't have to do it on your core product offering all the time.
And then just keeping in the theme of then that outside approach in, for Just Eat, it's really clear who your end customer is. For your organizations, it's slightly different. I suppose, Stefan, for you, you've moved different parts of the organization and you're really clear on who your customer is at each stage. So how do you drive that customer-centric approach within a team?
Ultimately, it's about delivering customer obsession in your team. It's not exactly a secret that at Lloyd's we did EUM way before we did APM. There were incumbent tools on APM that filled a gap. We had a complete black hole for EUM for the end customer, the last mile as we called it at the time. So we implemented EUM, and while that gave lots of great data and gave us insight into what customers were doing, we could see the latency, we could see errors, we could see page hits we weren't really aware of before. The most important thing I think it did is it made the customer a thing that we talked about. Customer became part of our language. We started building dashboards that had customers. We started talking about customers more often in meetings. Customers were just part of the lexicon of Lloyd's. And I think that was the most important thing that we did. The data's great, it's just making a customer at the center of everything we did.
And as a customer, very grateful to hear that. It makes life a lot easier.
Good.
But Dia, for you, we talk about customers, and it's easy to picture them in terms of a retail type customer. But for you, it's a user is a very different thing. It's an actual trader in an organization. So how do you know that you're actually helping them, and how do you get that feedback?
Well, it's kind of, I mean, it is different in the fact that, I mean, the traders can't go anywhere else to capture deals. They can't say, your system's rubbish, I'm going to go somewhere else and do it. But on the other hand, you know, I'm a shareholder of BP. These guys make money, and I don't want them in a bad mood because they've had a rubbish experience in an application. You know, I don't want them spending ages trying to get deals in and then be in a bad mood. I want them to have a really nice experience as they go through it. The big thing that we're finding as well, though, is, you know, over the last, I mean, Andy was here talking about IT transformation across BP. The reason that Andy's doing that is because we did that first in the trading organization, and we're now trying to make the rest of BP look more like the trading organization itself. The trading organization now trusts us and will partner with us to do stuff. We've moved away from being a pure IT function, just like, you know, like email or something like that. Yeah. You know, we're now a partner with the business, and I think that trust shows that we're doing the right thing.
Do you think you're coming together as an organization, the IT teams and the business are starting to understand each other more?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. They now have problems, and they come to us for solutions, you know. It's interesting talking about, you know, new technologies. I think we're the same. We've got certain things. We've got, you know, smart blotch applications. We're teaming with Google and Amazon and things like that to do natural language processing. But still, the best app that we've had, you know, a flagship app over the last few years has just been a pure, nice problem-solving app for, you know, pre-deal analytics. Yeah. And that kind of thing is, you know, it's a core partnership between us and the trading organization.
Perfect. I'm going to pick on you a little bit longer because you mentioned Andy's session at the start of today, which I thought was really, really interesting. As we move on to the next topic where we're talking about inspiring those around you, I can see how Andy is incredibly inspiring. But one of the questions I have is really, how do you galvanize a team towards those common goals? And I know that you've just recently taken over the trading front office team. How are you practically putting in practice some of the ideas you've had?
There's various different ways around it. There's, you know, from the tool sets we use, from things like AppDynamics, gives us a greater vision into what's going on. We are a DevOps team, and we care about the applications. You know, we're no longer in an old change the bank, run the bank kind of situation of going, oh, we've done a bunch of dev, throw it over to operations, I don't care anymore. So we're looking after that and we're doing it. But again, there's a what you do, there's an understanding from the traders, from the floor to see that you're doing good things. It's getting good feedback back again. I mean, the DevOps process itself is all about getting, you know, good quality, quick feedback back from everything you're doing, and you need to do that from a team perspective and have those kind of lovely moments when people go, you know, this is a game-changing application for us. We're going to making tons of cash out of this, you know what I mean, if we use this. And I think the other side to it is just the culture. You know, the DevOps culture comes with it. It's a team. It's, you know, people leaning into each other, as we talk about T-shaped engineers, where, you know, you've got that depth, but you've also got a breadth to be able to lean into what other people's problems are, swarming on the kind of stuff. And if you can get that kind of team mentality, I mean, to the point that this year, you know, we sacrificed the sprints, we got people into London together, we had some, you know, Ludo, I think he's still here, ran an engineering day to kind of fix some of those almost site reliability kind of things on the outside. And then just pulled together as a team, had some kind of hard conversations about how we might do testing, and, you know, and you build that strength in the team. And I think if you've got that, you're happy with the kind of technology that you're using, and then you can see an impact with the traders, you know, the things you're doing, then it's quite easy to have people inspired to do the job in a good way.
So it's really important to have that feedback loop after they do something. How has it really impacted and changed the trader's life and the revenue at the end?
Are people using it? And also, are you getting adoption?
Yeah.
You know, I guess it's a similar, you guys get, you know, new users come in if you've got different things coming in. For us, sometimes you write an application for all the right reasons and no one adopts it because it's not quite what they want. And using some of the tool sets that we have now, we can see that not only have we pushed something out, but we've changed some features and people are adopting it, using it more and more.
So the topic of culture there you brought up, and it was really interesting, and especially in the Sono session earlier today, we talked a lot about culture and the type of people you get into an organization. Just Eat's very different to BP, especially in terms of the age of the organization. Do you feel that inspiring the people around you, part of that is inbuilt in the culture of the organization, the type of people that you bring in the first place?
Yeah. I mean, it's all about people in the end. You know, as many metrics as you'd like to produce. You know, if AppD, we're talking earlier today, you know, if it could tell me my team health, you know, that's a massively important metric. If you can tell me how regularly they're shipping, if you can tell me, if I can drill in and see, I don't know, what their credit card spending is, you know, there must be underlying metrics that are going to bubble up to show me how productive these people are being as a team. You know, it's. I mean, innovation's built into the core of what Just Eat is. It was always very much a innovation-led company and a DevOps agile, sort of very decentralized model. And so we have, you know, sort of quite the opposite that I imagine you guys have of how do you put reins around that without scaring everyone off? How do you, you know, put controls and checks and balances that don't make all your developers think that they're working for a completely different company now?
Yeah, and you've a very agile organization, so it's quite an exciting place to come and join. Stefan, you've worked in a number of different projects and roles within Lloyd's, some that had a customer-centric approach and some that were regulatory, so very different types of outcomes and goals. In terms of inspiring those teams, how have you found that it was different between the different goals?
So I think the idea, or the way that I tend to go about it, is to that those business outcomes turn those into the thing that inspires the team. And generally speaking, it's the basic business school model of mission, vision, and strategy is what I use. Just the simple framework of getting the team together and getting them with skin in the game, and i.e. they're going to define what this is. So you turn up in a new team, and they don't have any of this. So you get them together, you get them to define what is their purpose, why are they there in the business. And as you surface things, you often find that the purpose they think they've got isn't the purpose that the rest of the business gets, which is where you get this conflict. the rest of the business thinks they're accountable for doing this, and they think they're accountable for doing that, which always happens in complex matrix organizations. So you work out what their purpose is, why they exist, why there's funding for them, and that defines their purpose, and then you just let them loose with how are we going to be great, and then how are we going to get there.
So what I'm hearing there is clarity first, and then getting them to understand their value, and then taking some ownership of it. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. And aligning that with the rest of the organization and the other stakeholders so that we can all succeed together, rather than what tends to happen sometimes is conflict with someone doing something because they think that's what they need to do, and someone not agreeing with that.
Okay.
I think, sorry, purpose is important, but I think, like, passion, you need to understand as well. I mean, it's good to know
but I think it
the
starts
hole they
there.
sit in.
I think that starts.
But yeah, I mean, because at Just Eat, you get a lot of developers being hired that come in who want to put a widget on a website that 1 million people are going to go and use that night. And that makes them really passionate, and they're really happy to do that. And my job a lot of the time is understanding how we can motivate them to care about the uptime of that widget as well. So it's, their purpose is to care about both.
Yeah.
Their passion falls into one very easily. So I find a lot of my job is trying to shoehorn the rest.
It's probably the opposite challenge at our place, where we've done the same things over and over again, and we've followed processes and governance, and people think that's the outcome that they're there to deliver, while forgetting that ultimate goal, which is to maintain uptime or to build a widget.
And then the next topic is a nice lead into that, which is about breaking the status quo. And I mean, for you personally, when we talk about you personally, there's a lot of opportunities to being an agent of transformation, but as we talked about, there's also a lot of challenges. Has it ever surprised you? Has there been a challenge that surprised you when you've tried to drive change in your organization? Or what have you found is the biggest personal challenge to driving change? Stefan, I think we'll start with you.
So I guess the example that I'd use is, and we've just delivered our open banking API platform, which we did essentially in the space of about 6 months. We did that in an agile way. So when we delivered our platform, we had 3 clear goals. We were going to meet some regulatory requirements, tick. We were going to deliver a new platform that enabled new business opportunities, tick. The third one, which is the challenge, we were going to do it in an agile manner, in an organization that is traditionally completely waterfall, in an organization that expects you to come up front with your requirements, your full design before asking for funding, which just simply doesn't work for agile. But there was no way we were going to deliver it in 6 months if we used a waterfall methodology. So for me, I think that was a challenge. And we overcame that by engaging with certain senior stakeholders, getting their buy-in, demonstrating that we were going to deliver a new way of working for the bank. We weren't just delivering those first 2 things, we were going to deliver the third thing.
And did you still, even though you went through those best steps to mitigate some of those challenges, did you still have butterflies?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, right up to the wire, we were still getting sign-off, going through all our governance, security, and, it was like only at the last minute someone said, yeah, you can go live.
That's still the exciting bit, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And Benny, what about you? Again, very different type of organization in terms of innovation coupled with that business risk, and you need to motivate or move very, very quickly in your industry. So how have you found driving innovation and mitigating the business risk that goes with it?
So, I mean, it's almost the opposite at Just Eat. You don't have to drive innovation; you have to rein innovation in. It's everyone is out there trying every new thing that they want. But it's amazing. Like when I started at Just Eat a long time ago as a developer, it was really interesting to see the technologies they'd chosen and the choices they'd made, because they hadn't had this is what we're doing, a step model across the company. It had always been, everyone try everything, we'll all sort of sort out something and standardize on it eventually. And it really helped the technology go forward. It really helped us push the boundaries of what we needed to do. Obviously, you have the other problem that it's a complete mess to maintain, and you bring in new people and try to explain that there's absolutely no standards across half your stack. It has its own challenges. But probably, you know, the time for me breaking the status quo was when I moved onto more of the operational side as the head of SRE, and I had to start bringing in some level of standardization. And I guess, you know, I was really scared because I knew it was so against the culture of Just Eat to try to standardize across multiple teams and tell them that they actually don't know the best and they should just actually do the same as everyone else. And it went down surprisingly well. Like, because I'd been a developer, because I'd worked on the product side of the fence, I knew how they'd feel, I knew how to sell them messages. We release a internal technology radar where we sort of just help say, this is what you should be standardizing on, this is what people are currently experimenting with, go talk to them if you want to experiment on something similar. But I also bring in some hard and fast rules, well not fast, some hard rules about, you know, this is what you can't do in certain parts of our system because I said so, basically. Yeah. You know, as a reliability engineer, it's not reliable to do that, and we had to put some sort of brakes on. But
some sort of process in place. It's really interesting to hear the difference between the two types of organization. Your biggest challenge is getting people to want to change and move to Agile. Your biggest challenge is to rein that in and try and put some degree of kind of control around it and understand. I mean, you guys are all clearly innovators and agents of change. How has this impacted, and to the personal challenge question, how has this personally impacted your careers? You becoming that agent of transformation. Has it attracted you to a different company than you thought you would have originally, or has it put you in a role that you wouldn't have been in beforehand? Maybe Dave, if you take that question.
Yeah, I've still not got to the speedboats and Ferraris part of my career, but you know what I mean. I don't know if that's where Andy is with the rest of the things, but. No, I think thing is, if you're not doing stuff that's a little bit anxious, makes you a bit anxious. If you're not doing stuff that's a little bit frightening, then it's kind of dull. I mean, you know, we not everything works first time. Not everything you do goes as well as you want the first time through. But that's kind of what makes it better when you get there in the end. If it was really easy, then we'd all be bored and we'd all do something else that's kind of different instead. I mean, for me, being involved in first the cloud transformations and containerization and moving kind of platforms forward, you've been kind of big into the Agile and DevOps part of this, and that has, you know, landed me the role for good or for bad that I'm in now, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think you do it because it does give you that excitement in what you want to do.
Yeah. So, and that leads nicely into the next topic, is about driving that innovation, but without the fear of it. So we all know that innovation and fear are intrinsically linked, but you guys have seemed to overcome in yourselves the worry, doing it even though you get the butterflies right up to the last second. But how do you instill in your teams, in your culture, giving them the confidence to go and break something or go and try it or create it, even if there's a challenge to it? So it sounds like, Benny, that's not the biggest problem that you have in your organization.
No, but I mean, without fear is still a challenge. You know, I mean, people love to innovate; they're given the freedom to get them to do it without fear is still a challenge. And you know, I think, you know, a no blame culture has to be part of that. You know, we have we have DevOps, so we have developers, individual guys, girls, 3 years into their career, push a button, cost the company a lot of money. You know, that can be a very scary thing, especially the first time that happens. Yeah. You know, the next day, they're in a meeting talking about it. There's some C-level executive in this meeting that they've never had a conversation with before, asking them questions. You know, how do you de-fear? I'm sure there's a word there.
New word.
You know, how do you make that a safe environment for those developers to, you know, continue to innovate and operate in? It is a challenge.
Yeah, and I think out of one of the sessions earlier, I think it was the Insono session when they were talking about giving out Raspberry Pis and ending up with the Hive system that we have today, being able to have that kind of culture where it allows for that, it's quite difficult to create it, especially, Dave, with you guys, when somebody makes a change and they can affect a trading application, but I've been in your organization, you seem to have the full confidence of the people around you. Is their trust in you a core component of helping them overcome that fear?
I think so. I think sometimes fear is the wrong word. I think it's excitement, it's anxiousness, it's going to think, you know, we're not throwing a switch on something that we've not tested, that we're not kind of sure. You know, the reason we have tool sets like AppDynamics, the reason we have the process we have in place is, you know, it's not, you know, it's only fear if you know you've not done enough or you've done something wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah, because then that's paralyzing, horrible. I know this is going to go badly, and if it goes well, it's because of luck rather than judgment. You know what I mean? So, you know, you don't get yourself into that kind of situation. It's like it's like being on a roller coaster. You know you're not going to die, but it is going to have some butterflies. You know, so I think it's trusting that, but it's also trusting. You know, within that DevOps team, you've got a multifaceted team. You've got multidisciplines. You've got your business analysts putting the right things forward. You've got your developers putting the kind of doing this, writing the right tests. You've got testing. You've got things. Together, that you build that trust and that confidence to push things forward. So there's, you know, we moved our derivatives trading platform out to the cloud this year. We've done everything we could. We've tested it. We've got AppD doing your migration, so you can see what it's like on-prem and see what it's like on things. You flick the switch, there is a bit of you that just goes, there's a second before any trades come in, have we just totally beasted our entire trading platform? But, you know, you haven't, because you've done it and you've got it through. So I think it's maybe trust in me, but it's trust in the team and the team as a whole that, you know, you trust each other, you're working to a high standard, and you're not going to have massive catastrophic failures because you know what you're doing.
I think that's a really strong message is as you move into more of an agile world, you have to trust the people around you so much more because their roles might be less defined, and therefore you have to just trust that they've done the right things and are working towards that common goal. But you touched on an interesting point there about the tools that help. And then if we go on to real-time intelligence and having like this data and this insights that you've never had beforehand. I mean, Stefan, how have you leveraged that to help you drive your organization? How have you leveraged real-time insight? Maybe even from AppDynamics, and where are you hoping to take it?
So, EUM is a absolutely critical part of our monitoring tool set. It identifies more incidents than we can shake a stick at. We often joke that we wish for the days before EUM because we had a load less incidents, frankly. So that's an absolutely core part of our business, EUM. APM on the core application on the UI is fundamentally there on a number of applications, and that's absolutely key. For us, we want to expand it vertically throughout our stack, so get a better visibility of what's going on, but also to scale it across further applications and get the same value that we're getting at the moment.
Perfect. And that's really key. Start it with the end user insight, and then you're working back from there. But Dave, you guys went and you went with APM first. How are you using all of that insight and that information today, and where are you hoping to take it?
So we're using it, across the piece, but I think it's interesting for us because it's very much the development organization that's brought this in. We're a DevOps organization. We're not just developing, we're running it, we're not throwing it to someone else to look after. But the developers themselves, before we had this, had no real insight into the production systems that were going on, couldn't see what was happening. Yeah. So it's been a massive thing for empowering us as a DevOps team to give us that autonomy that, we don't have to call somebody else to find out what's going on with our applications in production. I think moving forwards, using more of the analytics, tying that together, getting the systems end to end, really using some of that kind of thing, and even getting to a point where we're a little bit more self-healing. We're really looking forward to the kind of stuff with OpenShift as we've moved to the containerized platform. And, I think we've done the first initial rollouts. We've got a load of really, really cool data back that we've never had before. Yeah. And I think, the next step is to maybe lose some of the noise and really delve in on the good stuff.
Benny, I'm going to come back to you in a moment. Just looking at some of the questions that have come through from the audience, I really like some of them. And just to your point about how it was brought in by the development team, I'm going to continue to pick on you. So one of the top questions is, how do you convince a mature development team to use AppD instead of their own self-developed tools?
It depends how good your own self-developed tool is, doesn't it? You know what I mean? If you're going to set yourself up as the next AppD, then you're probably on your way doing your stuff. We were really impressed with AppD. We pushed it and we pushed the agents out there, and you immediately got transaction data back. You can recognize your application really quickly as a developer as it's presented back to you at the most cases. Yep. And, you know, what I find also is, before we had AppD, we were using essentially log scraping. So you're getting answers to questions that you're asking. You know, is this up, is this down, is this failed, is this whatever? Yeah. AppD's starting to give you things that you weren't spotting before. We're running stuff, in both dev tests in production, and we're seeing things that we wouldn't have picked up easily beforehand. So it kind of depends on how good the in-house tool is, but we're finding, you know, real value add, real insight into the applications we've got, rather than just getting answers to the questions we're asking.
Okay, and Stefan, the same question for you, because you've got a lot of legacy teams in Lloyd's. How have you convinced them to use a new technology rather than sticking with their old technology?
So people get emotionally attached to their tools, even if they're 20 years old. Yeah. And it is a genuine challenge. I mean, so for us, I guess it's about, well, one, back to the EUM point. We've now got EUM. We want to understand with more clarity why we get those problems. So, you know, coupling it with something on the application that allows you to see that coming through the stack makes complete sense. Fundamentally, I think that's probably it. And then getting your senior sponsorship in place, because you're now talking customer, right, rather than talking CPUs or memory or servers. And yeah, I think that's it. And then finding the funding to do that.
Finding the funding
is always the challenge. So doing that, and generally, you know, demonstrating that there's extra value, people's jobs are going to be easier, showing them the processes and systems that they built around the old tools, because what tends to happen, you say to someone, well, what do you want in a monitoring tool? They'll describe to you what they've got today, because it meets their processes and their governance that they've built up over 20 years, and they've forgotten all the compromises that they made and all the workarounds that they've got. Yeah. So just showing them that actually you can do it differently, I think, is key.
Perfect. So one of the next questions that came up, and Benny, will go to you, it's how long did it take to set up AppD in your organization? How long before you started seeing any value from it?
I mean, a lot of the setup problems, quirks, foibles of putting it into our sort of environment we faced in sort of the pre-sales stage. You know, how do you get us working on your types of servers, your sort of infrastructure? You know, we worked with you guys to get a lot of that done. So by the time it came to actually, okay, this is something we're going to use in production, it was a rollout phase. It covered 95% of what we wanted to, pretty much off the bat, with all that pre-sales setup. There was one or two that was a bit trickier, but yeah, I mean, the benefits came straight away. Really, once it's there and installed, you start putting your graphs together, working out what dashboards are suited to what users, and yeah, our operations team were looking at it within a week and seeing stuff seeing stuff quicker than we could on our existing tooling.
If that sounds similar to your experience, where a lot of the work was done understanding the business value and the pre-sales bit, so that when you actually started paying for it, you were ready to go. Yeah,
when we finally got around to paying for it, which was a dark, dark day.
We're going to get shot.
But yeah, so most of it, I mean, it's interesting. We still haven't got the maximum value out of it because we don't think we've finished you can keep honing this and you get out of it what you get in. I was amazed at how quickly it pushed out. I was amazed at what data we got back, how quickly it is. And then you get into kind of difficult second album kind of terminology where it's like, well, what do I go from this? And, you know, some of the getting analytics working, some of the, you know, some of the end-to-end stuff, it's not quite as obvious or simple as it can be, but it's then, you know, you've got a massive amount of value, and then you kind of, you know, you're getting extra value on top and moving into it. And as you said, you get into dashboarding and stuff.
Yeah, we got that straight away.
Yeah.
At your roadshow last year, you talked about a maturity model, and that's sort of what we're working on now.
Yeah.
Like, so we're a year in, and we're looking at, all right, how do we get this even better? How do we, you know?
Yeah.
I've seen sample dashboards that will make our lives easier. Let's spend some time and get that information out of AppD and into our dashboards.
And I think, you know, if I'm starting to slightly whinge, it's because I think the initial one was so easy. It was like, you know, it's in, it's breaking, it's working, it's brilliant. Like, oh, this bit's hard. That's not fair. You know what I mean? It's just kind of harder, but but again, you know, we're constantly getting stuff out of it, and people are picking it up and using it because it's not because we've pushed it out and said you must look at this screen or you must look at this dashboard, but because they themselves are finding it useful for the things that they're doing.
It feels like you've set up every question that I'm about to ask, so it's the next question. The next question was around, some organizations are still very siloed. How have you managed to convince other teams to start using AppDynamics? But it sounds like they've just started seeing the value themselves and adopting it themselves, or are you finding you have to push other teams to use it?
So I made my teams use it, so they don't know what to do. And said, look, here it is, it's make the most of that. No, the adoption has been there. It's quite an impressive tool set. You know, I've not shown it to somebody and have them not say, that's impressive, that looks good. You know, it's good looking, you want to use it, you might get lost in it now and again, but it's a quality thing. You put it in front of people and people can see the benefits kind of straight away, I usually find. I think for me, more than other teams, as I said, it's more that developers are picking it up and using it day to day. You know, we run overnight non-functional tests. In the past, you would have to kind of go and look at that data and sort it out and see what your trends are and things like this. AppDynamics makes that kind of thing really quite simple to do. And you know, you get past that and you get straight into the value.
It's that point where other people are picking it up. Stefan, have you found that business owners are starting to really understand some of the insights that they can get from the EUM data? Or even, Benny, as well as you, are you finding business owners asking you for information from AppDynamics?
We are, yeah, definitely. And certainly the correlation between latency and customer satisfaction is something that's really well understood now, and everyone talks about it. So yeah, absolutely. And then the whole business IQ piece, people are now asking us to collect data or to look at this sort of sector or to understand these types of customers. Yeah, very much business driven now, certainly.
Perfect. And what about you, Ben?
Yeah, no, we're not there yet. Ours is definitely still in our operational teams, and you know, our dev teams around sort of the website developers, they're very much into the EUM side of it. We've just really picked up our engagement with you guys again in the last sort of month or so, and we were showing off to the Android developers whatever the EUM side is called for the app devs, and yeah, they were blown away by what it could do, and yeah, so that we're like, well, we've been paying for this for 12 months now. Yeah, maybe you could integrate with it, but yeah, you know, now that they know it's there, it's more of a communication fail on our side, really. They are keen to adopt it and move into it.
Perfect.
We don't have the analytics side, so we're not yet too engaged with the product side of, you know, conversion and dollar value side of things.
So you've got room to grow, but you're already getting value out of what you have today. Perfect. So I'm going to let you answer the last question as well, Benny. It's probably good that you have just had a drink. If you thought that AppD was an animal, what kind of animal would AppD be? It's a tough one. I know we didn't give you time to prep for these questions, and it's a tough one. And anybody else on the panel, feel free to take that as well. I'm going to answer live.
Sorry, there's my boss sitting over there that asked this question, so, you know.
Oh, excellent.
No,
He's got an innocent face. I don't think it was him at all. It's okay, you don't have to answer it.
Anything I say, I'm just instantly thinking of my account manager, and it's just going to reflect terribly, so, you know.
It's fine.
I'm not going to answer that question.
I really appreciated the conversation. Hopefully you guys got some really useful insights. But thank you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciated it.